us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, let's start at the very beginning. And why don't you just outline what Provision is?
Provision Analytics is a software company designed to digitize food safety, quality management, and compliance in the first half of the food supply chain. So think of farms through processors, manufacturers, and shipping entities.
Cool. So tell me why you wanted to start this company in the first place, Eric.
I got to be honest with you, it wasn't the company I wanted to start.
Well, that sounds like a good story.
Yeah, the original thesis of Provision was actually kind of choreographed around the wine industry. I've got a background in computer science, master's in finance. Somewhere in the midst of all of that, I became a bit of a wine nerd. Started looking at the inefficiencies in the wine supply chain, everything from fraud and corruption to just poor movement of product, poor access to market. Really dug in deep there, learned that a lot of what was happening in the wine ecosystem was driven by corruption. And for every challenge and opportunity that there was in the wine ecosystem, there were about 1,000-fold in food. I grew up on a farm, so some kind of background, backbone in agriculture in general. I knew a lot about it. Started digging into that, and one thing leads to another. The next thing you know, we're driving that. The thesis of the company was heavily based around capturing data to determine what we could do in terms of risk, food loss. Just overall, if you take a look at food or agriculture as the largest economic center on the planet, there's a lot of data there. There's a lot of opportunity. Everybody has to eat 3 times a day, so inherently there's a lot of product moving around and a lot of data associated. If we were to capture all of that data, which is unrealistic, you could do a lot of things, but what happens if you can capture some of it? There's an opportunity to start looking at predictivity around food recall, mitigation around food loss, and then some more long-run opportunities on financial risk. So think of insurance or commodities movement, volatility, that sort of thing. We started the company and ultimately started looking at food safety because that's where the large saturation of data was. You end up capturing 3 times more data through food safety and quality records than you will through an ERP or accounting or inventory system. So that was kind of the wedge and the reason that we're going after that direction. You're providing a solution out to the industry while inherently capturing data that can drive some secondary, tertiary value downstream.
So exciting. And so interesting how you just got into this area. That's a true entrepreneur, just going after the opportunity, just like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's so great. Okay, so just some real basic questions about the company itself. How many years have you been in business?
We founded the company in, Q2 2018, so coming up on 3.5 years or so.
Okay, great. How many employees do you have?
Currently, we've got 21 full-time staff and a smattering of other consultants and part-time students in here, and hopefully ramp that up with another 10 to 15 hires in the next 1.5 years.
Ooh, that's exciting. That's exciting for sure. So, at Thinner Labs, we always talk about creating this massive human impact. So in terms of impact, what do you think Provision is doing?
The overall impact, I think that a little bit, there's a layer of altruism to working and digitizing elements of the food supply chain. COVID was a big one for people. 1.5 years ago, I would say the grand majority of people didn't have a clue what we were doing or why until bacon, filet mignon, lemons and limes all disappeared from the grocery store shelf, and all of a sudden it's a major priority, right? You don't have fruit for your cocktails and people want to know where the food is in the supply chain and if it's safe to eat. And so, that altruism sort of angle is not only food access, but it's also food loss mitigation. So I think that there's inherently an impact that we can drive by increasing food quality and food safety through all of these records that have been traditionally on paper and spreadsheet. 97% of the ecosystem still operates on clipboard. So this is Pepsi, Kellogg's, the big brands that everyone's very familiar with. And that goes all the way down to, the mom and pop cookie shops. They'll just run and achieve this stuff with clipboard and spreadsheet because it's always been second fiddle to, financial metrics. So inherently the impact that we can drive is increasing that quality reducing downtime, reducing food loss, and then driving a higher level of predictability in terms of the product as it moves through the supply chain.
Fascinating. So super cool. Okay, so what is next for Provision? What are you guys working on right now? What are you driving towards in the next little while?
Yeah, so from a product standpoint, some really interesting pieces. One around, think of it as dynamic vendor management. If you're running a cookie company, you've got a number of different vendors that are sending you flour, butter, eggs, chocolate chips, whatever that might be. Building out a component there in the software that allows you to interact real time with your vendors, manage certificates of analysis from them, various other certifying bodies or recognition. Think of something like organic. If you're only buying organic flour, you want to know they have those certifications and they're not lying to you. And then the overall ability to communicate with those vendors, where, again, using COVID as the example, you used to be able to go and see everybody, and now maybe you can't. So exchanging the information real time, ranking vendors against each other for less traditional metrics like sustainability or environmental impact, where ESG is such a huge thing now. So that's one piece from the product perspective. Another one, can't quite spill the beans yet, but we're working on some pretty cool stuff with a major player in Europe. The opportunity there is really going to come to life, but we have to build kind of multilingual translation. So that's a really big lift that's going to be fundamental to our product. And then some underlying artificial intelligence stuff that I think we'd need a whole nother meeting to get into. But
just a little AI, no big deal.
Yeah. So from a product perspective, that's next on the tap. We're in the midst of, knock on wood, a little bit superstitious, but a major financing coming through here in Q4 that'll allow us to grow the business and really capture a lot of the momentum that's been opened up by a ton of other innovation in the ecosystem. So driving that, hiring, like I said, 10 to 15 people in the next year and a half, and just keep pushing not only the product, but then also sales growth into the US and into Europe.
Exciting. Thank you so much for telling us all about this, Eric, and best of luck. We'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric.